Hello and welcome back to the Go-Karts and Good Times YouTube channel. Today I want to get a couple more things done on the Miata, including a mount for the ECU, a battery box, and getting a set of fans working on the radiator so that the coolant system can work more efficiently. Another flaw of the coolant system as it sits currently is that there are no belts on the accessory drive pulleys on the front of the engine. That means my battery will eventually die with no alternator and I have no power steering or AC. The AC compressor is removed and the power steering has issues with a leaky rack with torn seals, but I do want that alternator working and I do need the water pump to be spinning. Fortunately, the V-drive belt that goes to the alternator is the same one that hits the water pump, so I only really need that one, but my alternator appears to be seized, so I'll have to also pull that out and check it out before I buy a belt. Because the false sort of panel that held the ECU rusted away and the bracketry for its original mounting position is gone, I want to keep the ECU mounted up off the floor, possibly on the transmission hump or farther up under the dash. And with the battery removed from its stock location because that portion of the car is cut out, I also have to create a spot for it to live, which is probably going to be in this little notch around the fuel tank hump. In any case, like the past couple of Miata videos, I'm not going to show a lot of me actually doing this stuff, but give updates at key moments where I can show off the process and share the final product with you. All that being said, I have plenty of metal, a welder, and most of the hardware I need to get these things mounted up. I would like it if I had a rib nut gun so I can put threads into flat surfaces like this, where a battery box or up there where an ECU will mount on top of something, but we'll see as the day goes. It may not be the most sturdy thing in the world, but I have a bracket made up that fits right around the ECU like this. And now I've just got to drill some holes before I can get it mounted up on a couple of these studs high off the ground and with pretty solid mounting points. Of course, it'll still move around a little bit, not being mounted in more than two places, but I'm not concerned about it getting damaged or moving around that much, so I'm going to get to drilling some holes, throw a coat of paint on this thing, and then get it mounted up. I only have 2 of the bolts of 6 that I actually need to get the ECU mounted to the bracket, but you can kind of see what I'm going for here. Before there was some airbag stuff here, so there was already room under the dash anyway, not that I'll be running the factory one, but if you wanted to, you definitely could. If I end up putting a head unit in, there's plenty of room for wiring back here, gauges, switches, anything else I'll need, I can mount to this surface underneath or behind the ECU if there need to be more electronics mounted. For now, the bolts are only finger tight and I only have some of the hardware, but once it's tight I don't think it'll be that loose and I think it'll be just good enough for keeping the ECU in place. Moving on to the battery box, I want to keep it as minimal as possible using some of this angle iron and flat stock to create a box that I'll hopefully be able to bolt down to the floor or the rear deck tray, whatever you. Using some of the angle iron scrap I have, I made up a simple little box for the battery to sit in. It'll either sit here like this or like this and then have a tie down coming over the top. Because I'm not sure if I'll be able to get that rib nut gun, I'm not sure exactly how or where I'm going to mount it, but I have options either through here or in the end here. I left it open, and I also don't know whether I'll have my tie down into the same holes as the mounts will be, or if they'll just be bars welded onto the bracket, or threaded rod, whatever. I have to wait to see what I can get my hands on, but in the meantime I can throw a coat of paint on this just like I did on that ECU mount bracket, which is drying nicely. In the meantime, however, I can start to tackle the issue of fans and cooling. I want to get that alternator out and I want to test both the fans and try and get them wired up. Here's one of the plugs, but I'm not sure where the other one is, nor do I know if both of the fans work, so I'll have to get all that sorted, and it's a simple thing that I also don't need to show, so I'll update you when I get those things done. Unfortunately, I have good news and bad news. Good news is I got the alternator freed up and it actually feels fine except for a little bit of resistance in one spot where I'm sure it sat and got corroded. But if I really want to, I can pull it out and put new bearings in it or clean it up further. For now, I think it'll be fine though. Another thing is that while both fans work, I don't have connectors, nor do I have a thermostat so that a temperature triggered fan control would work in the first place. So for now, I'll probably just wire them together on a switch, which I didn't want to do because that is pretty ghetto, I can't lie, but I think it's what I'll have to do to make do for now. With paint drying and that alternator fine, I think I'm actually going to run to the store and grab a belt so I can get that water pump and the alternator spinning so I no longer have to deal with dead batteries every time I run the car. And while I'm there, I'm probably going to grab a relay or some wiring things so I can actually do the fans semi-legit. After doing a little bit of poking around over here, I did find out which one is the fan relay, and I think what I'm going to do so I don't have to cut into the stock wiring is run wires for the main power of the relay outside the box, then have the relay mounted to the firewall and have my own trigger so that in the future I can just put the stock relay back into the factory location and it'll function normally. And this way I won't just be running all that current through some simple little toggle. While I'm gone, I'm going to have my friend take off the manifold so I can assess what I want to do with the exhaust, especially considering an upgrade I've planned very shortly down the road. After a short trip, the exhaust is removed. We have a belt to get the alternator and the water pump spinning, a relay to put in between the stock wiring so that we can have our own trigger for the fans. The first order of business is getting all the wiring done for the fans and then getting that belt on and starting the car. With the exhaust dismantled for what I'm going to do in an upcoming video, the battery box finally dry, and the fans hooked up, I can move on to finding out how I'm actually going to hold that battery down in the rear of the car. As you can see here, there's a little bit of jankery going on with crimp connectors, but that's because I didn't want to solder the wiring from both fans together, and they're both detachable individually. And as for the factory plug, I soldered in extended wires where they were clipped so that it has plenty of length, and this little loom is getting both of these fans spinned up just fine. What I ended up doing was taking the main interrupted power that the factory relay controlled, it's extending it out to my own relay with a trigger that, if you follow, goes into the car. One of the wires is grounded to a random spot out of the way, and the other one goes to what I found was a nice switch power for something in the dash that I probably won't be using, like a light. And for now, I can just unplug that when I don't want the fans to be running. Obviously in the future, I either want a switch or a thermostatic trip, in which case I can reuse the stock wiring. But for now, when I need to cool it down, that'll work. My main reason for wanting not to install gauges and switches thus far is because I don't have a dashboard or a panel where I can put these things, and I'd rather just stick crimp connectors in for now rather than wire up a switch that I'll have to change the position of, the length of the wires of, and just spend time doing something I'm going to change in the future. So that works for now. As far as my spot for the battery, I'll have to get that figured out and update you when I find a solution. Finally, I have a legit battery mount, which was a little bit problematic because I did not end up getting rib nuts and ended up doing through bolts, and that kind of interfered with one of the tabs for the gas tank, but I managed to make it work. And that thing's not going anywhere anytime soon. With the battery mounted, a seat and floor installed, the fans on switch power, which is fine for now because anytime I'll be running the car, I'll probably want the fans running, and they're not that loud or annoying anyway, and a belt installed off camera on the alternator and the water pump. This thing should be good to run for a decent amount of time with no issues besides a couple things leaking, like the power steering rack. I would start the car, but we have the exhaust off for what you'll see in a future video, so I think this is just about where I'm going to be. I almost forgot to mention that the ECU is also mounted with nice hardware. As you can tell, it's night now, but that was all just an afternoon of work, and I'm getting very close to getting the car where I want to be before I leave for school. You'll have to stay tuned until next video to see the surprise I have for the car, but some of you may be able to guess it already or have seen it lying around in the background of other videos, but I assume I'll be posting these in pretty quick succession anyways. In any case, hopefully you stick around and keep up with the channel and the project to see where this car is going to go. Unfortunately, there'll be a pretty big break in videos while I'm away from home, but there is plenty of old content on the channel for you to watch if you're interested in my projects, so feel free to check it out. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if you did, I'd appreciate it if you'd like, comment, or even subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what you want to see on the car. If you have any tips, if you have any criticisms, anything like that, feel free to write me. And if you're still here at this point in the video, thank you for watching, and for now, this is me signing off.